Yeah. Siege. Riley. Taz. Yeah. Set me free and give me death, there ain't no other choices. When I lay down and go to sleep, I keep on hearing voices. Little whispers in my head, man, is you fake or loyal? Rhino water, death is sign of baby, pick your poison. These little demons living underneath my bed, creeping. Know the real monster lives above them all, sleeping. That subtle breathing in your closet every single evening. Thought you never see me again, looks can be deceiving. When they hear the sound of the drum, they'll be saying, oh Lord, here they come. Yeah, here we come.
We take play seriously. That's why ATK chooses Omen by HP and Windows 10.
Here we come.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to more ATK Challenger Division action here tonight with two of, not the challengers, sorry, this is the Elite Division. This is the top of the top, and I mean, it should have been pretty obvious considering we have the two top teams in South Africa, arguably. ATK, without a doubt, the top team in South Africa, but 2CP definitely coming up there and trying to rival them for this top position. Here to bring you the action is myself, Altruism, and of course the wonderful Sun Phoenix.
Hello, I'm excited to tell the tale of 2CP's recovery here, to see if they can, mount the kind of fight we expected from them a few seasons or a few matches ago against ATK. Of course, we've seen these two teams play 2/3 times before. The first time they played, of course, was an open division. That went 3-1 to ATK. The second time was an RMG group stage. That went 3-1 to ATK. And then, continuing the trend of not getting 3-0'd, 2CP was 4-0'd for a change by ATK, or rather, by ATK in the RMG Grand Final. So they got something to prove here, but they're coming off the back of some mixed results, to say the least. They did, of course, beat Snorlax Gaming quite recently, 3-0, finally recouping a win over a team that's really had their number in the recent past. But unfortunately, getting reverse swept by Evo Esports in a very, very surprising result. So they're checkered history. They're going to be trying to put that behind them here and really push forward into a strong performance here.
Especially when you go down in a reverse sweep, that might indicate just a little bit of psychological. Maybe there's something wrong in the team where they get so confident and they let it go, and then they struggle to get that mindset back, which, can build on to if they go 1 or 2 maps down in the beginning of a game, especially against like a team like ATK. If you're known as a team for just getting the wrong mindset and struggling to get back into a good one, that can really play against you against a team that already is going to be such a tough ask for these guys. And so, when you're coming out of a couple of games where you manage to take a couple of maps on, you've got to know that your team can do it. You've got to know that you are able to at least challenge these guys. It's not a complete flattening. So, the guys need to be in the right mindset going into this, I think.
That's all speculation, though, of course. We don't know for sure what the issues are, but I think that kind of segues nicely into my next point, which is the team rosters for this coming match. Looking at the 2CP side, we'll start there because that is the most interesting thing. Some familiar names there. If anybody has been a part of the Overwatch community for more than a year or since before the beginning of this year, there's 2 brand new names that will be very recognizable to you, and that's on the main tank. So we'll run through the rest on the tank. We'll run through the rest of the team quickly. It's Aquatic and Luke on the DPS. Tox and Zlade on supports. No changes there, a squad we're quite familiar with. But on the front line, 2 very big names coming in. Ashbro, former off-tank player for 2CP, of course a member of the World Cup squad as well, where he stepped in for, who was it, Centical, who had to step out at the last minute, also in that off-tank role. And then Silencio coming in. Now, if you don't know Silencio, he was briefly on Goliath Gaming at the beginning of this year. That team never actually made it into any tournaments, or rather, it disbanded before they actually made it into any tournaments. And then he also played for Pulse Gaming way back in the past, which at the time was best or second best only to Eden. So really a strong player in his own right, but known more for his DPS than his tank. So it's going to be interesting to see how he slots in on that off-tank role.
I like to see that when a team really has experience behind them, because it means that they're used to the game mechanics. They've really got the hang of the heroes and the maps and stuff like that. And it means that they can start working on actual team dynamics, things that play into a certain meta. Unfortunately, they're going to be going against just as an experienced team, if not more so, in the very solid and very static lineup that we've seen from ATK for quite a long time. We've got Bandit and Dizzy taking up those 2 main tank positions. Bandit, one of the most impactful Reinhardt players in the country, where he'll hold that shield and hold until the exact moment it's time to break, and then it's a ton of armor onto you and really putting it in your face. 20 known for a couple of amazing heroes. I personally always love seeing 20 on a Tracer, because that's just havoc in the background, just staying alive forever, doing fantastic things, but also managing to get really nice pickoffs when it comes to it with some of your longer range heroes. We've got Sponge following up on that, being able to do a lot of good initiations. You can see there favoring the Mei in this case in the picture, but a Mei is a good example of the amount of tactical plays he can set the rest of the team up for and be that secondary follow-up and securing DPS. In your supports now, you've got Squishy and Lazy, 2 amazing players there. Squishy being your flex support, so being able to run everything that he can. And so, getting towards anyone available in this roster, and there are so many good heroes available, it means the team has such good flex around them. Lazy shoring up with a good, solid, consistent support there as well.
Absolutely, and this is a team that is typified by extreme discipline but also creativity. Whenever I describe this team, whenever I cast their matches, I always use the word scary over and over and over again. And that's because they are scary. I'd hate to play against this team because what they do more than any other team is work damn hard. This is a team that scrims 6 days a week, and they ain't playing around. They're here to take W's, and they have done so better than any team in the league. That they have 19 wins and 0 losses. They have 1 map loss. But bearing in mind the map they lost was to 2CP, so they have bled before, and this is the team that made them do it. So if anybody has a hope of making them bleed again, we're looking at the team right here. But changes on both squads since then, and it should be fascinating how the changes affect this matchup today.
You know, at the end of the day, it comes down to the Overwatch that we're going to be playing. And this week, these teams have no restrictions against them. So it means they are going to be able to play exactly what Overwatch they want to. We have no hero bans again this week. And so these guys can run any composition that they want. And I'm guessing that both of these teams have some team compositions that they will be quite familiar with, quite comfortable on. They might be looking ATK for a breakout, try testing out maybe a new strategy that they haven't brought to the competitive ladder yet. You know, something that you might want to and have to get used to playing against a really good team for. So we might see a couple of very weird strategies coming out for them, but you can be sure that they're going to break that out once they have this game securely in the bag, once they've seen what 2CP is bringing. You know, you don't want to get cocky going into a game like this where you go, oh, it's fine, we got this in the bag. We're going to drop the first map because of a weird strategy, maybe even take it into the second one, and then suddenly you're facing having to do a reverse sweep and you're going, hang on.
Yeah, that's not a position you never willingly put yourself in, that's for sure. But I think I'd actually make the same narrative, but for the other team. I want to see 2CP doing the weird stuff here, bringing out some fanciful nonsense, especially given their new lineup. You know, Silencio is not a player that I know for playing much off tank. I'm sure he's proficient on most of the core heroes in that role, but he's a hero known for his DPS. So how does that affect his, or he's a player rather known for his DPS heroes? How does that affect his playstyle on the off tank? How does that affect how he slots into the team on that role? It's going to be interesting to see. And of course, Ashbro, well known for his off tank. How's that going to play out? He's playing main tank in this case. I'm sure he's going to be playing a lot of Ryan, but he is. I think actually what we have here are the 2 best balls in the country facing off against each other. I'm going to say balls. I'm going to hear
Bandit, yeah, Bandit's ball.
Bandit and Ashbro, Altruism, you probably don't know this, but for anybody who watched him play last year, he was one of the first guys who picked up ball in South Africa and really was making waves with the hero, really getting a lot of value out of it. So we could see a lot of ball in the series, but we know ATK, they have a roster, or rather they have strategies, and they're very clean. Now, sometimes the strategies do revolve around that ball, but when Bandit's running the ball, it's for a purpose. So that for me says if we do see that ball matchup, ATK is going to get more value out of it. But like I say, I want to see XvG, 2CP try some cool things here and see if they can unsettle ATK, like we've seen no team do up until now.
You know, I'd love to see 2CP there when you've got them bringing in that secondary support secondary tank who's actually a DPS player. It opens up some weird hero picks for you. I mean, some heroes like Roadhog are so incredibly accuracy dependent that most players can't get enough value out of them to consistently see them in the competitive circuit. Whereas if you get a DPS on it who can hit that hook 9 out of 10 times and then finish it off, you get a very powerful pick. And if your team then builds around something like that where they just want to try something weird, and so I would love to see something like that, like you say, the weird picks coming out. Our first map is going to be the control point Lijiang Tower, which takes us into 3 different areas. We've got a lot of space. I mean, a couple of these maps are actually really good for a ball. So we talked about the ball. This could be a home for them.
Could be a home, but not on this first map. We're looking at control center here. Very unlikely we're going to see the ball. We're more likely to see more brawly style compositions. Wouldn't surprise me to see the May Reaper with the Reinhardt and either a Diva or a Zarya. Looking at ATK, I suspect we're going to see Dizzy on that Diva. He tends to favor that hero quite a lot. And it does look like he's going that way. 20 currently on the Symmetra. Works on this point fairly well, but not that well, so it's probably just a TP out of point. We do see Sponge on the Genji, but who knows? We might see that switched up. On the side of XvG 2CP, oh, the word salad is it's hard to manage all these teams that are just 3 letters. But anyway, Ashbro and Silencio on Ryan Zarya, quite interestingly, makes a lot of sense as well. Aquatic on Symmetra, my team switch up to a Reaper. May for Luke and the support similar across the line, but Squishy going to be favoring that honor of his.
I like it. We do see both of the 2 main DPSs swapping off quickly. Aquatic going for that Reaper, going to be able to teleport in quickly. 20 following up instead with the McCree. And so a little bit of a different team composition coming out for these 2 teams. Both of them picking up the Mei, which is going to be critical in initiating fights and securing some positional advantage. But both of the teams just managing to juke each other around. Oh, Zlade going to be the first pick off. 20 just proving how damaging that is. An amazing anti-heal grenade comes out, and that's going to put 2CP under a lot of pressure. And ATK has pushed this forward. They've managed to secure 1. 20 and Lazy on the other side of the fight, just shutting down everyone, and them splitting them in half at the beginning of the fight means ATK take that first fight very, very cleanly.
Yeah, I didn't see how Slade actually went down there, but I imagine he just slightly underestimated what 20 was capable of. Got out of position for half a second and had his head taken off. So that's the kind of thing that 20 is capable of. That's the kind of thing 2CP has to be really careful of, because once Slade goes down, it all kind of unravels from there. They don't have the speed boost, they don't have that little bit of healing. They lack the mobility, and against the Mei, that can be a death sentence.
You know, as a Lucio, you just get so used to maybe just standing in a weird position, bouncing on a random wall somewhere, because most people can't make those shots. You know, you can't hit someone just going bounce, bounce, bounce. Oh, this is going to be a great wall. This is going to start it off quickly. Ashbro is going to go down on that Reinhardt. A great Mei initiation there coming out from Sponge. He's nearly at his ultimate for this fight, so if they drag it on long enough, he's going to be able to use it. Squishy does have that nano boost, though. 20 managing to pick off Silencio after it got frozen up, and like a Luke with a nice little counter wall there. He's going to be the one to drop the first ultimate. Sponge has one of his own that's going off almost in the exact same position. It's instead going to be ATK coming out on top of that and dropping the nano boost as well, just making sure 20 is up here healthy and doing huge amounts of damage to secure ATK that second fight.
Look at the ultimates though. I mean, ATK won that so well. They committed as many ultimates, exactly as many ultimates as they needed, and they still have pretty much 4 ultis in the bank, including that sound barrier. 2CP on their way to their second by the looks of things. Tox might have committed the Coalescence a bit earlier. Luke committed the Blizzard in that team fight, but they're at a huge deficit, and that anti-heal is not going to help.
Oh, that's a great wall that goes through there. That is going to separate the teams up quickly. Oh, they managed to whittle down the shield and get the Earth Shatter through into the back line. So Ashbro is going to go down. So far, the only casualties, but his team is under a lot of pressure. Like a Luke, get us a great wall up. They commit down the beats to try and keep the rest of the team alive. Bandit managing to survive through this. A nice self-destruct comes out from Dizzy to just secure some positioning and manages to pick up Slade. The Gravits... Oh man, that Graviton Surge manages to pick up the whole of ATK though, followed up so nicely by the Coalescence and the Death Blossom, means that 2CP at the death are managing to come through here, as Squishy still fighting on the 4 points, gonna just be staggered out though.
He actually took out Luke before he died, and that means a lot, because what you want to do as 2CP now is get aggressive onto the choke and use the Mei to control that space. Mei's dead though, she has to come back from spawn now, and that little play into the grave for Squishy might have been enough to secure ATK a pretty easy advance onto point here.
It is going to be like a Luke now back onto point, just chauffeured in nicely by Slade. Aquatic's going to go down very early in this fight, so the Reaper not going to be there to put out so much damage that they need. Instead, they're just going to swing straight away with the Reinhardt hammer, gets into the face and does put a lot of pressure onto ATK. ATK back out though, and now with the big anti-heal grenade, Slade is on so little health, 20 managing to even get the headshot there. 2CP has dedicated this Blizzard, which is going to keep them dead for just as long. They managed to buy some time for poor Aquatic to try and contest the point. But at the end of the day, with ATK taking that fight so cleanly and so quickly, they managed to get it back and secure the first point.
Yeah, Slade not managed to touch at the end there. But that whole map was kind of typified by ATK taking the first pick on every single occasion. Even in the fight they lost, they got the first pick and got kind of drawn out by the ult economy of 2CP. So that's something 2CP need to be careful of, especially against hit scans the caliber of 20. And you know, everyone was getting in on the action there. So seems to me like ATK, as I suggested, might happen. Little bit more disciplined coming into this one. We're seeing them get that first pick, but not get too over aggressive after they get it. Playing slow and steady, knowing they have the advantage, and pouncing when they see an opportunity. Really nice play from ATK, but 2CP definitely showed up there and definitely at least making ATK have to work for it a little bit.
As we see here now, ATK and 2CP going for slightly different strategies. 2CP preferring the slightly more ranged approach, just realizing that ATK seems to have a little bit more discipline in that very close engagement. So they're going to get that aquatic Widowmaker and the Luke Pharaoh just keeping a bit more distance in the back there. Both of them managed to get a pick off at the beginning of this fight, and so ATK going to be under a lot of pressure straight away. 2 heroes down, and it is going to be the Reinhardt and the Arisa and the Sigma trying to push onto point. They're doing a slow job of it though, and so far ATK managing to even get possession of the point here at the beginning. They lose Squishy and Bandit though, so even though ATK managing to get the first percentage on the board, seem to be going to lose this fight as 2CP are managing to clean up here at the death. So drawn out, but a good fight that 2CP would be happy to win.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to see them not matching ATK. Of course, when they came out the door, they had no way of knowing exactly what ATK was going to do, but the fact that they're not matching them means they don't have to outskill them on a comp that ATK is comfortable of. If you're trying to do that, you're in for a bad time, because you can't outskill this team in any sense of the word, so you have to beat them strategically, in my opinion. And 2CP did a really good job leveraging their long-range DPS, and that's a very good start to the next fight.
Oh man, ATK just pushed straight into the doors there, and Sponge jumped past them there in the corner, and somehow just like Luke and Toxin Socks managing to get such a beautiful little flanking position that they won that fight, and they've dragged this out to up to 40% already on the clock.
Yeah, very impressive for 2CP. This is what you want to see out of them. Put ATK on the back foot. We see Bandit on that ball. That's a comfort pick for him, but he switched to it really quickly. So they have a plan. If they cap point first, they have one comp. If they don't, they have another. But at the moment, they're struggling even to get a look in onto the point. The way the ATK or the 2CP DPS are getting picks every time is really standing them in good step. And there's another one. Aquatic to take down Sponge. And yeah, ATK is struggling here in a way we haven't seen them do in a long time.
You know, Bandit wants to just get in and harass that backline, but at this stage, there's so many people putting big damage between Aquatic and Luke, and the pressure that they're managing to exert on every position, you know, with the mobility of the Pharaoh and the sight lines that Aquatic can get on this map. Just no high ground, no doorway is safe. Even now, especially more with the Widow's ultimate, he is going to even pick up 20 on a Tracer. That is not an easy shot to make, and it just seems that ATK is scattered all over the map. I mean, they've got 2 here on points. They've managed to drop a beat that didn't hit that many people actually, and with Squishy having gone down, does manage to get the nano boost off at the beginning of the fight, and it's going to be ATK looking to make some position here. They don't have a lot of percentage to waste, and they do manage to take the fight though after a very scrappy initiation.
That was a team fight manufactured out of nowhere for ATK. 20 goes down right at the start, but they still get aggressive with Bandit and Sponge on the front line, force a few abilities out, and get the pick they need to start leveraging their numbers advantage. 20 gets back to the fight super quickly on that Tracer, and from there, they managed to clean up. That was really nice work for them, but they are still at a disadvantage. Ultimate's looking good. Oh, Luke commits his and fights through. He survives.
Man, he was up in the air so high, and he manages to pick up both of the supports. Now they've got down the D.Va mech as well, so Mini D.Va going to fall just very quickly as well. Bandit trying to roll back to point, but he's certainly not going to be able to contest this alone. He's got Sponge and 20 there, but none of them can really take that many bullets and keep running. Bandit does go down, and so it is going to be 2CP trying to take this. Both of the DPS are still contesting here, dragging out a couple more percentages, which is what they want, but it is going to leave with 2CP with quite a long amount of time if they do manage to win this. So far, ATK, though, not giving up the fight. 2CP just fractions of millimeters away from getting this, and Bandit has got the support that he needs. Just the mobility of ATK, meaning that they can get back onto point. They haven't been able to take down too many of 2CP, though. They commit the pulse bomb, and it takes out 2 of them. That's going to be massive for them to keep this fight going. Sponge manages to get a double kill himself, and that's out of nowhere. ATK, after stalling, manages to take this all the way.
I'm getting flashbacks to Thursday, Altruism. I watched this game already. It wasn't that impressive, but 2CP had that one in the bag. ATK stalled it out with a Tracer and managed to come back in with the numbers and secure the picks they need. 2CP on the back foot, gonna try and magic up a team fight here.
Man, 2CP has actually committed themselves to just getting to the point to a certain extent. Ashbro went in, and now they have to even fight into the Lucio boost, so they've got some time to try and stall this out. Squishy dropping the Dragon Blade, manages to get one. Squishy actually is the Mercy getting a kill on the counter Mercy, and it's just up to ATK to clear this out. Can 2CP turn it around? No, because you're never supposed to be able to with just a Genji and a Tracer.
That's what I was expecting to see in the last team fight for the team in red. ATK, though, secured themselves a win, but that was not easy, okay? We saw them play in the RMG Grand Finals. That looked easy. All of the maps looked pretty one-sided, I'll be honest with you guys. This time, ATK having to stretch a little bit, but this is also typical of them. When they played Snorlax, they struggled on Nepal for the first map, but once they got to the second and third maps, they figured out, worked out any kinks at the beginning, and looked scary once again. So the real test for 2CP comes now, or the next test, I suppose. Can they keep ATK under pressure and start capping some more points, winning some team fights, some more team fights, and actually grab a map of these guys? And who knows, if you can take one map, you can take three. So long road ahead for 2CP, but they're showing some signs of life here, and that's really nice to see.
You know, it seemed like they were doing everything right there in that second one. They understood where ATK's strengths lay, and they didn't try and counter them out like man to man. They didn't try and outplay ATK with ATK's strategy. They came up with their own thing. We said we were looking for some really weird different compositions, and they did it. They pulled out something. They pulled out the Widowmaker. They pulled out the Pharah, comboed those two things beautifully. The only thing that they really struggled with in that match was finishing off the last two. You know, finishing off those DPS plays. But that seems like a small thing that's easy to fix, but it's so crucial that they can fix it. Because if you leave 20 and Sponge, even in a normal team fight, uncontested, and they can run around you and you can't take them out, you are going to suffer consistently. So you've got to be able to take out those two DPS plays, regardless of what heroes they're on.
Absolutely. So next map, we're going to Blizzard World here. This is, of course, 2CP's map pick. The same map that Snorlax picked against ATK in the last broadcasted match we saw of them. ATK looked pretty strong, but Snorlax was at least able to get some push into ATK. That is key on these kinds of maps, these hybrid maps, the 2CP maps. Capping that first point, it sounds super obvious, but capping that first point is extremely important, and it's one of the harder things to do, but it's something you can strategize around, because you know it's something you're always going to have to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams strategize coming in here, and how they respond to what happened on the previous map. So I talk about ATK being cool, wow. The Freudian slip thing. I talk about ATK being calm, disciplined, and creative. And we saw that creativity coming out there. They came in with a plan. They capped first. They didn't cap point first, or at least they didn't win the first team fight. And then they just switched up and responded to exactly what 2CP were running. And they chose to focus on Aquatic there. No counters for Luke, but many, many counters for the Widowmaker. That was key to them winning out their team fight, along with a few mistakes from 2CP, of course. But it's going to be interesting to see how they respond here on Blizzard World, and how 2CP is going to adapt, and vice versa, of course.
I'm interested to see this. ATK has chosen to do the defense first, and that's a very confident move by them. You know, if you think that you're the better team, you want to try and do some defense, just try and shut them down on that first point. If they can't push that first point, it just becomes a very clear game plan for how you can approach the game, how you're going to approach any sort of team fights. Do you go for an all-in-one composition? Do you just draw it out for 2 minutes long in a single team fight and slowly win by spawn advantage? You know, it gives ATK some strategies to work with, but it means that 2CP, this isn't their map pick. They obviously have some sort of strategy pretty well thought out here. Interestingly enough, though, it is going to be them taking a bunker strat on offense here. They've got a Torbjorn with two big shield tanks. They've got the Sigma, and they've got the Orisa, and so this is weird. This is what you expect to see on the defense side often. But they're going to go around the side here. They've got a definite strategy here.
Yeah, they've got something planned, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can make it work against a team the caliber of ATK. Immediately Tart goes around, but they're making some space here. They're moving in. They've pushed them off the high ground, and now they've got enough space to actually move into a position that they're more comfortable on.
If you look at just the hero picks and the way X2CP here is playing, they're trying to keep a little bit of distance between themselves and ATK. We saw that in the previous round where they had the Pharah and the Widowmaker doing some work from distance. 20 though is going to get the first kill there and going to make a long walk back. And if you look at them, Aquatic, like a Luke, very good. Torp Turret is great over like a certain amount of distance where you just shut down an entire area. You've got a Widowmaker. Zenyatta and Baptiste, both long distance supports, if you want to talk about it in that way. Both of them shoot long distances while protecting their team. And so if they can keep the distance on ATK, they might actually be able to win out team fights just before they actually have to engage on them.
I agree in theory, but in practice, it's the distance that's shutting them down here. They need to also be able to close the distance and get into a space where ATK can't just dominate them from that range. And so far, 20's been doing a much better job of actually taking advantage of the range that he has with that dynamite and with just pure mechanical headshots and the like. And again, as they move in, Bandit takes one down, and now they're committing ultis into this.
This is great, though. You talked about how quickly 20 was managing to get this up. I mean, 20's already at 30% on towards the next ultimate after that. So 20 just being able to get that position is going to now snowball the rest of ATK. They've taken themselves on the high ground, and 2CB can't close the distance. What path do they take to get around to these guys and before they're read out completely and countered?
This is a comp that works really well against a team that's not running a diva, because you can see the value you can get out of the Hulk. Bring everyone together or move them off the high ground and split them up a little bit. They did that well in the first team fight, but unfortunately left Slade open on the flank, or rather left Slade open to get killed on the flank by 2CP. But there we go. Much better job moving them off the high ground. Let's see if they can get anything done here.
And if you look from 20's perspective now, it's just, he's got so much time to work with. He's just able to sit at the top there, retreat when he needs to, and now he's got, you know, some dangerous health issues, but again, he just is able to fight from this high ground position exactly when he wants to.
Exactly. So this is where, again, if you were on 2CP, you'd love to have a diva here. I think the Sigma makes a lot of sense, don't get me wrong, especially since it's coming up to that ulti, but the way ATK are playing, it might be useful to get a diva in the face or somebody in the face of 20 to shut him down when the rest of the team drops down. Because every time they're dropping down, splitting up, but the crossfire from the turret and 20 is too much for 2CP to deal with.
Oh, Sponge is going to drop that ultimate, actually in a great position. It's just going to shut off that retreat for them. They managed to get a lot of kills so far, and it's just left the rest of 2CP completely out in the open. 2CP came in with a very solid game plan, with a very theoretical game plan, and now with only 30 seconds left, they got a single push. They've got to drop all these ultimates to take this point if they're not careful.
Yes, but they do at least have all these ultimates, and that was part of their plan, I'm sure. Especially looking at that Transcendence. It's going to allow people not to get picked up so easily. Bob is...
Oh!
Mind.
Never mind. Oh, well, okay, so that's one kill for them already, but they are getting the counter kills now. 2CP getting a huge amount of value. They've dropped almost every ult. They've got the Transcendence now to try and counter out everything, but other than that, 5 ults on the deck comes out from 2CP. They managed to advance themselves onto the point. Now Bandit's out of position here, and with that Transcendence, this is going to be it. They get Earth Shattered down, and it's going to be now actually, again, ATK just surviving throughout all of those ultimates. 2CP threw everything that they had at them, and ATK wins this with resources to spare.
Resource dizzy with a celebration firework there, the self-destruct, not even needed. And that is concerning if you're a 2CP. You had a game plan, it didn't quite work out, but they didn't adapt at all. Now, on the one hand, you can understand, right? You're coming up to 6 ultis. Why not get the 6 ultis and take a team fight? That's one option. The other option is change your composition up, change the philosophy of the composition up a little bit, and maybe get aggressive here. So you spoke about how they're using the range to their advantage, or how they did that on Lijiang Tower and Night Market, but it's not working here because 20 has too much space to work. I think that's the key of what I'm seeing here. And the way ATK is giving him that space, because what you saw, when they move in straight away. They move some of the high ground with the halt or whatever. Bandit and a few other people just split from 20 and leave him on his own. They've got the turret on one side, 20 on the other side, and 2CP have no way to deal with all those fire angles. And it makes, I mean, in theory they do, right? They got multiple shields, and Zelensky was doing a good job of putting a shield in 20's face, but it's just not enough to stop him from finding an angle and doing the damage. at that point, you might want to just scrap the idea you've got there and move on to something a little bit more aggressive. Split them up, but give yourself a way to put 20 under pressure, because that's a problem. They were relying on Aquatic to put 20 under pressure, and he just wasn't able to do that. And 20 had a Mercy on his back when Aquatic did it. So really stacking the deck against him there.
Would have been so nice to see them build up those ultimates just a single team fight earlier. Drop all 6 ultimates. If it didn't work, then just try something completely different, something super divey and into the back lines. But it's now up to 2CP to defend for 4 minutes, and that is a tough ask. They have taken themselves up on this high ground position. They have again gone for the exact same composition as they ran in the previous round. They've got a little bit more positional advantage, but now ATK has taken a lineup that's a much more mobile lineup, much more able to threaten that high ground. They've got Dizzy on that Diva, they've got Sponge on the Genji, and it's working well for them so far, managing to get a couple of kills so far and really put 2CP under pressure, and they're able to initiate when they want, threaten the positions that they want.
ATK is playing a win condition composition here. I mean, all compositions are win condition compositions, obviously. Looking at the EMP, they're looking at Sponge's ulti, and then they've got the damage from Squishy behind that and the Valkyrie to boot. Those are what they're actually waiting for to win a team fight here. Anything that comes before that is just bonus, you know? So if they can build 20's EMP up, then they're good to go, but they are going to get aggressive here.
I love Bandit now making a good initiation into the back line. They're just scattering the thought patterns of 2CP a little bit. 20 managing to get up close to that ultimate, 71% so far, but it is going to be Sponge going to go down, so they're not going to be able to take this fight. Certainly not going to want to dedicate it when that is such a clear win condition. They have dropped the Valkyrie though from Squishy. They think that they might even be able to drag this out a little bit longer. Bandit manages to find some of the sports in the back line. Zayd even managing to go down at the end here. And so 2CP now on a ticking clock where they don't actually have a lot of sustain against the onslaught of ATK. ATK wants to look to push this position. Like Luke does have his ultimate, so he's going to try and secure the point a little bit more, and it's going to counter out now that Bandit's landmines, just a couple left in the corner. Somehow ATK not pushing onto the point now. 2CP managing to get even some support back. Toxin Socks having swapped over to the Brigitte. And so 20 now has this ultimate though. He's going to be looking for this EMP straight into the center of the fight. That's going to go out. Combined with Sponge's Dragon Blade, he manages to get 4 kills here, and that's certainly going to secure them the fight. Even Bob being counted out there on the side. And it means ATK pushing straight here onto this. They only have to get a single tick, and they are going to be contested at the last second. 2CP, valiant effort, but not successful.
Yeah, not successful, and this is what we see out of ATK. Just that, you know, as I said, their strategy was wait for the MP, wait for the Blade, and win the team fight, and that's exactly what they did. They managed to take a scrappy team fight beforehand, thinning the herd of 2CP, so to speak, and once they got their ultis up, it was all cleanup. I mean, just look at this. That EMP means he doesn't have to worry about the Bob, no coach gun can come out of the Ana, no Lucio mobility, and I believe Zed had his ulti in that situation. And
that was such a great play. And you know, that's what, weirdly enough, one of the things we talked about at the beginning, when we said, with them defending, they know exactly what they have to do. And then they just built a team card that went, right, guys, what do we have to do? Win one team fight. How do we do that? EMP, Dragon Blade, we win.
Exactly, and the concerning thing is that the next map is just what we just saw, but twice in a row. It's going to be even, it's more of the same as far as 2CP is concerned. If they can't mount an attack, because you have to think ATK are going to go for that defense again, as in defending first. If they cannot mount an attack on that push, then ATK knows their win condition again, and they can just go, right, run the identical comp, because that comp is so good at winning one team fight.
Yeah.
And if you can give yourselves multiple opportunities to have that one team fight, you have multiple opportunities to take that first point. And if that's all you have to defend, then you're in trouble. So, I mean, that's the basic equation. So 2CP looking down the barrel of a difficult game 3 here. But I think we're going into a break here before we carry on.
Indeed, guys, don't go anywhere. This is the ATK Elite Division. We are seeing ATK with a great performance so far, but 2CP now with a little bit of time to just collect themselves. You know, maybe their strategies in the last game weren't as polished, or they worked on paper, but it just didn't come out, and they need to reevaluate their plan going forward. So we're going to give them that opportunity. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies, to the ATK Elite Division. Here we are seeing ATK, the top team in South Africa, certainly living up to that title here tonight as they've managed to take 2 games already off 2CP. 2CP not to be counted out, though, certainly showing a little bit of vibe and vigor there on Lijiang Tower and playing some good Overwatch. You know, sometimes we see teams with a little bit of a dead cat bounce there where they're just like, hey, look, we dropped 6 ultimates, we won a team fight. No, 2CP actually putting in a lot of great Overwatch there to give ATK a run for their money.
On Lijiang, yes.
On Lijiang.
Well, less so. And recency bias says Blizzard was probably more indicative of their performance overall. But they did have something to show on Lijiang. But like I mentioned before the break, 2CP, the map type, Assault, is just 2 hybrid maps. The first half of hybrid maps stuck together. So
that's maybe the worst description of a 2CP map that I've ever heard. It's like the first hybrid
map. I'm not explaining that. stuff to you. It's going to be tough for 2CP, especially if they don't manage to cap that first point. Now, I don't know what the map's going to be here. It is going to be Paris. That's what I was going to
Ooh, we never see Paris.
We don't, unless it's versus ATK, because ATK are very vocal about their distaste for this map. So if a team is picking maps into ATK, often you'll see Paris crop up. But they're good at this map, just like they're good at every other map. That said, this is a map that I believe 2CP have beaten ATK on. I do stand to be corrected. It might have been Haramura. But
Not recently, but
ATK, a map type that ATK have lost. In fact, it's the only map type that they've lost because they've only ever lost one map. So not much data to go on there. But
no, they only have a 94% win rate on maps.
Trying to, spice them up here and find those nuggets of hope because 2CP are going to need that. They're going to need to take advantage of every little piece of advantage that they can.
You know how cool it would be though? Like ATK, when you have a renowned we hate this map, teams would literally start, especially in a tournament where you're going to play them a couple of times, you might be planning for a LAN final against them, perhaps finally, eventually at some stage, hint foreshadowing. But can you imagine, like, you actually get all the teams starting to draft strats, specific hero picks, specific attack strats, really finding out from ATK where we can take points off you? Because if you get a free map against a team like ATK, man, that makes your life so much easier. Not easy, not too easy, but easier.
No. But you have to remember that relies on you losing the previous map to actually get the map choice. And again, it's a map that I think ATK don't like, but they'll play it if they're going to win every time. Like, what do they care? Hanamura, Paris, still the same thing. And they seem to be better than everyone else on every map anyway. So you can put all your eggs in the Paris basket, but they're probably still good enough, and you might be better off focusing your energy on winning one of the first two maps instead. And it seems like they have more trouble on control than on any other map type, from what we've seen.
Well, we did see ATK managing to just last out that entire first point of the hybrid map, and considering this is a double first point of hybrid map amalgamation that we have going on here, they've even picked up a Bastion here for ATK. Just Sponge wanting a little bit of left click action here. 20 getting some of his own, but his takes a lot more skill. Not the way to start it off there. Sorry 20, we did get that one on stream, just getting that little bit of dynamite into your own face, but it's going to be ATK looking pretty comfortable, and considering 2CP couldn't push hybrid at all, it means that they're going to have a bit of a fight here. Although the first point of 2CP is typically, or assault, we should actually call it considering the team is 2CP. The first point is slightly attack favored, and so 2CP might have a chance, but they are going to be pushing up with confidence, but respect, I think.
Yeah, but they're not. Oh, again, 20 finds that first pick. He will get brought back to life at least, so it's not going to be too much of an issue, but no resurrection in the team fight. But now look at them. They split the crossfires quite nicely here with the Pharaoh on the high ground, but the way the defense is set up for ATK, they got protection for both of the two halves, right? 20 is protected by the Reinhardt, and he's got a Mercy on his back. The Sponge on the Bastion is protected by the Sigma, and he's got Lazy on his back. You can't kill. It's so hard to kill anything permanently for 2CP right now. Between the Immortality Field and the Resurrection, they're going to struggle to find any inroads here.
Oh man, they're trying to poke out of that little hole, but the Bastion's got just straight sideline set on there. Manages to chew down Orisa in no time, so Hashbro not going to be able to get that. Lycanluke got to get a big pick though now, coming onto the... manages to take out the Reinhardt, lose out Squishy on the Mercy to try and get the res, and so now 2CP actually has a real opportunity. They need to deal with this Bastion though.
They do, but it's 3v6, and if they don't win this, I will cry. So that's a great start to winning the team fight. It looks like they're in control. Bandit is back here on the ball, so I mean he could in theory stall, and we've seen it happen a lot recently. But I think I trust 2CP to be able to win this one out.
Oh, Bandit nearly gets the bump off the point, and so 2CP are going to be able to pick this up, and it is going to be them all the way. Great early pick, such good just snowballing from that first pick on Bandit, pulled out Squishy, and then ended the team fight. Great play by 2CP.
full compositional swap here from ATK. They have a plan for the second point, and it revolves around allowing Bandit to make space on that ball. Give 20 the option. 20 might switch to that Tracer, given the composition once he commits the Bob into the next team fight. But we'll have to see. Luke has built the barrage after that very key fight. Bob up for Aquatic, Gravitic Flux, almost up to the Bongo. Slade as his LT, 2CP with the War Chest of note, and they're going to be hard-pressed not to win this one.
This is huge. This is the time that 2CP had the advantage. They had the ult advantage. They've gone in and dropped 2 already. They did pick up 1. So far, Toxin Sock going to be bringing their Widow, their Pharah back to life. So like a Luke going to be back into this fight, and so big pressure being placed here onto ATK. They've already lost the first tick, the second one very close behind it. So 2CP picking up a lot here. They have really snowballed this out so beautifully. They don't have any more ults to throw at this, and so they do in a very quick time. 2CP gets this.
Yes, they are alive. There is a beating heart in 2CP. They've shown up to Paris with a plan, and they've executed it perfectly this time compared to what we saw on Blizzard World. And now ATK finally, for the first time since the last time they faced 2CP, a little bit on the back foot here, but we know how good they are at executing their set plays. And 2CP are going to have to bring that same kind of magic to their defense. Now, they've got a really nice time bank here, but it's important not to throw that away by giving away early picks in team fights, which you can see them do quite a lot, especially against hitscan the caliber of 20. And we might also see, look at that composition, exactly what we saw on the hybrid map for ATK. The EMP, the Blade, and this time backed up by the Nano Boost. So if they don't get picked by the very aggressive playstyle of the squad, they still have to look towards that final team fight. Now, what options do they have to actually deal with that big EMP team fight? They've got Tox on the Zenyatta at the moment, so he can commit that Transcendence if he doesn't get hit by the EMP. So it's going to be a kind of back and forth between 20 and Tox, trying to avoid each other. 20 wants to catch Tox in the EMP and gun him down when he gets rid of his shields and prevent the Transcendence from coming out. Tox wants to hide away from 20, or at least make the EMP bad enough that his team can still win the team fight. That's kind of the back and forth we'll have to see, assuming they can weather the storm that ATK is going to throw at them before that ultimate comes out.
But it comes down to those early picks that you talk off, you know? That's assuming that ATK needs that ultimate combo to win the team fight. If they get some early picks, you're starting to face some really dangerous players running at you anyway. And so we're going to see a little bit of poking out there. I like the fact that Leica Luke is here on that Torbjorn. We talk about that in the break, where it's just the Torbjorn just denies so much space for that Symmetra to work into. And so he's going to get a little bit space here at the back, 20 get to 34% ultimate charge. And again, with that Orb of Discord, it's going to make him just a little bit less effective. ATK dives in quite quickly now. They have wanted to commit to this team fight just to get some spikes out here. We do see all of 2CP going down though. Such a quick push from ATK. And the problem with this is that ATK is going to win this first point without even having to drop that combo. They're going to be so close to that for the second point.
That is a big old problem, because EMP was not committed, Blade was not committed, Nano Boost not committed. ATK have everything. They won that team fight, and it cost them nothing but about a minute. So 2CP are in a tough position here. They're going to have to rely on... Okay, they're switching up the composition. That's nice to see. They're going to run a dive here, make sure they can respond with their own aggression when ATK gets aggressive onto them.
And I like the fact that Toxin Socks is on this Brigitte, you know, even during that EMP, if you're still smashing around with your flail, and the team is going to commit onto you during an EMP, you can get a couple of decent amounts of healing out for your team, even with that. And so we have found Sponge building up that ultimate so far. He's got the Dragon Blade ready in the pocket. 20, not quite there yet, but it is going to be the first map defended here by 2CP. They've got a couple of nice early picks here. The ultimate's coming in here. We do see the dedication of the EMP and the Dragon Blade. They're playing this from a disadvantage, so they need to clear this out, otherwise that's going to be a huge investment. So they get a couple of picks in the beginning here, looking for the baby diva, but they're not killing quickly enough. They haven't won this team fight outright, and so far 2CP managing to still contest this point and pulling out the massive win condition ultimates. That means ATK is going to have to build these things back up from the start. They're still contesting this point, but 2CP, they just need to keep 1 or 2 people alive at any one particular stage. ATK looking to really commit this now. Everyone's managed to reinforce, so they drop the beats, have to fight into a like a Luke's Molten Core here on the point, and so with 2CP dragging it out even further, it's a minute of team fight, and with Sponge has even swapped off that Genji now. They've realized that they wasted their one opportunity and didn't get anything out of it.
That said, 20 is 75% to his next EMP, which is alarming to say the least, and they can combo that up with the self-destruct. Otherwise, full composition switch up. That was I don't even know the correct form for how I want to use this word in the sentence, but anyways, hubris from ATK. They should never have committed all the ultis in that situation. They were down so many, just back out and wait for the next team fight. I don't understand why they committed all of those ultis when they had so much time in the bank. That's an unusual lack of discipline from this squad. That said, like I said, 20 almost up to another EMP, and that self-destruct plus the EMP could be a big problem for 2CP to deal with, given that they have no ulti. So they're going to give away ticks for free here. You don't want to do this.
That's not the way you really want to start this. Maybe worried about that 20 ultimate coming out. You know, they don't want to commit onto the point because Billy is looking very, very dangerous. Now they're starting to contest, but they've actually got almost all the way to the end. They could actually see Nanas. They do. They don't even lose the team fight.
Oh, talk about disasters. It all goes up in smoke. You know, I spoke about ATK making a mistake on that previous team. 2CP, for whatever reason, just didn't feel comfortable getting aggressive onto the point there. They were zoned by something, whether it was fear of the EMP, which is definitely possible, fear of the self-destruct. For whatever reason, they gave ATK so much space to work with and just gifted them 2 points, and then had to scramble to touch. EMP comes out, self-destruct goes up, they feed 2, and they don't even get a team fight out of that. That is a frustrating team fight loss to play through, I'm sure, but it's also frustrating for us to watch, given they had such a good standing on that round already.
I mean, that's what overthinking looks like. Like, let's be fair. That's what overthinking looks like, when you actually psych yourself out of the team fight to the point where you don't get the team fight. Because eventually, like you say, is when you're trying to commit with that fraction left, why? Why? Because as soon as, if you've got to keep someone on the point at all stages, it means your stall goes away. You know, you don't now have an entire 360 degrees to work with. You have a second. You have a microsecond to get everyone on the point. There's no kiting back and forth. There's no wonderful plays between your teams where you can peel off each other. Yeah. You've got to win everything from that point onwards, and they didn't have to do that.
It was a very miscommunication, overthinking, I think, some combination between those two things. More of the same from ATK coming into the attack. More of the same, no, actually different defense here for 2CP. They've decided the Rhine, they're going to try and match ATK's most comfortable comp. But I like that they're mixing in the Brigitte that you mentioned earlier. I think that really works well against the style of play that ATK is bringing on their attack. So 2CP did manage to out-time bank them here, but ATK going to try and get a nice team fight win like they did in the first attack.
Oh, well, let's not see 2CP not ready to give up the point again just as much. Their squishy does go down, so that's going to be a massive amount of healing loss. Lazy also going to go down for ATK, so they're on the disadvantage. Toxin Sock's doing so well with this Brigitte, just being able to nail down those mobile targets for half a second and give his team the time to finish them off. And so Brigitte doing so well in the last one, and again, ATK dragging this team fight out a little bit longer than it needs to. Sponge going to be the last casualty as this team backs up. And they've lost quite a lot of a time bank here. They only really have one more fight to go into 2CP.
Yeah, 2CP in the driver's seat now. Sponge did manage to build himself up a Dragon Blade. Aquatic, though, does have the Deadeye in response. Now, it's not the hardest counter in the world. It's not a particularly good counter, but it does buy a few seconds where Sponge cannot swing because he has to either deflect or hide. So that might be important here, but it does leave Aquatic open to getting his little... I don't even know what I was going to say there. For getting punished by that. Slade does have a nano boost though, so that's going to be a lot of ultis to work with here. Oh, Nano Blade now up. Squishy managed to build his nano. Could be trouble for 2CP. They have to be careful.
Zay does have a nano boost of his own though. He's going to drop this at the beginning of the fight. They want to take this on their own terms. It also gives Aquatic some space. That is going to be an ultimate. A Deadeye is going to be going towards the point. Everyone who peeks is going to get taken out. Sponge though going to be using his ultimate a little bit more effectively. The Deadeye only managing to pick off Dizzy's mech, and so Sponge in the background going to be taking out the whole of 2CP with that Dragon Blade, assisted by a couple more people. A bit of a bomb coming in over the top there. Sponge, ooh, a couple of people suffering from that Molten Core a little bit, staying alive though, managing to clear this out nicely. So ATK timing their attack perfectly. They still only have 30 seconds now, and only the Bandit ult on that Wrecking Ball.
Oh, a little bit of indecision here. You see Sponge going back, thinking of switching composition, but deciding to stay on the Genji on the attack here. They have X number of seconds, 14 at the moment, and it's going to be a tough push to come in here. Ashbro could build his ulti up quickly. Silencio can do the same, so might be difficult given the compositional switch-ups here, but Bandit does have the mines. Busy closing in on the self-destruct of his own, so this could be an explosive team fight here.
That's a great little mines just put there under that high ground, which means that everyone who was grouped up on that high ground wasn't able to push onto point though. Aquatic though doesn't want to. He's very close to his Deadeye, which can really shut out this team fight. The rest of his team doing well as well, even though self-destruct from D.Va coming in to take out Lazy. ATK losing huge numbers of people, and assuming 2CP can clear this up, they are going to pull this out of overtime, and they managed to secure with only dropping the first point.
I hope we don't see 2CP lose this map, because I'd love to see them play more like they were playing on this map in the coming maps. So fingers crossed, no bias. I just want to see good Overwatch, and that's what 2CP are showing me at the moment. They're really taking the fight to ATK. ATK really, unfortunately, committed so many ultis onto that first point. They were so almost panicky in making sure they secured the first point. They committed a sound barrier when it wasn't needed. They committed an EMP that didn't seem to get much value, or at least we didn't see it on stream. And yeah, Sponge got all the value on the Genji blade, but they committed like 3 or 4 other ultis. So they came in at an ult disadvantage, a slight ult disadvantage, and struggled to close it out in the 20 seconds they had to actually take that team fight. And like you saw with 2CP on the first point, on their first defense, where they didn't give themselves any time to touch the point. ATK in a similar situation. They had to scramble in, they didn't get the team fight they needed, the ults came out from 2CP and they secured the defense. Now, they still have work to do here. If they cap first point, the worst they can do is a draw. But capping first point has been a tough ask for them, so we're going to have to see more of what we saw on the first round. Compositionally identical for ATK here, and in fact, very similar, but Luke actually going to go for the Sombra here. I'm not sure I like this, because I think his Pharaoh was getting so much value, but on paper it makes a ton of sense.
You know, the Pharaoh relied on one thing, and that was getting a very quick pick. 2CP won that last time, and they got through both of the maps so quickly because they won the first fight, they got the pick that they needed instantly, and then they had the ult advantage, which they carried through onto the second point. Like Luke is going to go back for that Pharaoh, just like you say, got a lot of value out of it. Maybe they were just expecting Sponge to go out with that Bastion, and maybe that was the problem, but they realized if they can get that value again, if they can just make it very, very quick, but they now have to get through the backyard. 20 is going to be the first one to draw blood, and losing your Silencio on his Sigma is going to be big at the beginning of this. They can't afford to lose that ult advantage to ATK.
It's really difficult for him to get back into the team fight as well, because his team is now split. His team is on one side of the choke, and he's now coming from the other. He does have Luke over his head. The problem was when people die on 2CP, they can't get raised, even though there's a Mercy, because Mercy's obviously staying with Luke to make sure he gets as much value as possible. So that means any picks that ATK get are permanent for the most part.
We see like Luke just trying to put some pressure down long range, just maybe threaten that positional advantage of the Bastion, but you're never really going to do too much. The big problem for them is that 20 has almost got that Bob up already, and it means that he's going to be able to just put such positional control onto this point, and when you've already got a Bastion and an Ashe overlooking it, it's going to make it very difficult for 2CB to push in. They don't really have any ultimates of their own, and so they are going to be going into an ult disadvantage into this one fight. They're only giving themselves a one single real engage in this one, and with 30 seconds left, it's going to need to be a rushed one as well.
Sorry, Window committed their buys late. Doesn't seem to fire. I'm so enthralled by the match. I forgot I'm supposed to be speaking. It's going to be up, I think, to Luke finding an angle or Aquatic. Bob does go in, doesn't find anything, and there's that first pick. Squishy's going to get the res, but can they find anything more on the side of 2CP?
It also allows Luke, to push up very quickly, and he's got that barrage. He's going to drop it straight to their faces. He manages to get it on the Reinhardt. Loses his own life to this, but a Reinhardt is almost a worthwhile pick, especially when you got Toxin Socks being able to get that res at the back line. They're going to lose both of them again, though, as the rest of the team clears the point. They just have such positional advantage now with that Bastion. It's just being able to give them such security on the point. Even with Bob dropped there by 2CP, it was just not enough. They got the pick and they couldn't follow through.
Oh, that's so disappointing to see. Just when you feel things are heating up and 2CP is ready to take some maps off them, they don't manage to cap the first point there. And that's all they would have needed to at least secure themselves a draw and send us into a tiebreaker. But ATK just too strong. Now, we saw them be a little bit ill-disciplined today, actually, in a way we haven't really seen them be ever. I don't know if that's just the map, if that's just 2CP putting them under enough pressure or what it was, but they committed a few unnecessary ultis. But at the end of the day, I think this one was won more, at least Paris, by the team who made more mistakes as opposed to the team who made less, obviously. I mean, whatever.
I like the fact that
2CP, I think, made some very critical mistakes there. But they did show up, and they struggled against a very, very, very strong ATK team. That squad that they were running, that last composition, that's what its plan is. Make it so hard for you to find angles, to put damage in, to get kills, and to actually secure space on the objective. They burnt their whole 2 minutes on one team fight. And ATK, just had one team fight to win, and they did that with their ultimate. So really well played from ATK, but I'm disappointed we didn't see more matches here, more maps, because I think we could have had a really fun match.
For 2CP, the fights that they took by winning it under their advantage. And on the assault map, they won that second point because they played the perfect game. They played their best game, where they got the pick, they followed up with it, they were able to clear the point quickly, they had the ult advantage, they advanced quickly to the point and took it through ult advantage in a single clean team fight. That's like textbook Overwatch. It's literally textbook Overwatch. Yeah. And so 2CP executed their game plans perfectly, and when they did, they won the team fights. The problem was that they didn't do it as consistently as ATK. They made big mistakes. They didn't touch the points. They gave away that second point for free. And arguably, that was what cost them the map. Yeah. Was just not taking that team fight. It wasn't the fact that they couldn't assault again and take the next team fight, the next points when the reshuffle. It was the fact that they gave them the second one at all. They got the perfect game of Overwatch to win that second point. And then you give it away to ATK.
That team fight that they kind of C9, it wasn't quite a C9, it was a bit more complicated than that. But that team fight they lost on second point was, they weren't guaranteed to win it by any stretch of the imagination. But imagine if ATK has 30 seconds left on less time to attack that first point on the next round. Maybe Sponge doesn't have his ulti up, maybe the EMP can't come out, maybe the Nanny Blade can't come out. So that's all you need. That's the margins we're working with here. And for 2CP to put ATK in that kind of margin is really impressive from them, and a different color from what we saw in their last match against ATK.
We came into this understanding ATK was the favorites. They have an unbeaten now 20 games in a row without losing, but more importantly, in the last 20 games, they have lost one map. 2CP would have been the team to take a map against them. 2CP looking like the only ones really coming close, and that's nice to see though. ATK was always going to be the favorites, but 2CP showed that gap that we're so used to seeing is actually a lot smaller than it used to be, I think. And so it makes me excited for the rest of this tournament going forwards. Sun Phoenix, do you have someone who stood out today? Typically you give it to the winning team, so probably from ATK?
Definitely from ATK. I would love to have got thoughts from Silencio or Ashro, but I have a code that I have to live by. And unfortunately, that code dictates that the winning team gets to say their piece. Now, I had a lot of options to choose from here. There were quite a few standout performers. But for me, it's going to be not the usual suspect, but one of the usual suspects. A Sponge, for me, I think he stood out today. That Genji performance especially, of course, he'll always tell you himself, enabled by his teammates. But it's either between 20 and Sponge for me, and I think we gave it to 20 last time, and I think Sponge had a little bit of extra today for me. So I'm going to give it to Sponge.
I'm sad about that. I wanted Squishy. I mean, that Mercy, he got 2 kills as Mercy in that game, and both of them were against the counter Mercy. He managed to take out Toxin Socks twice in that match. That's fantastic. So it's my personal, but I am excited to get to talk to Sponge. Sponge is going to be joining us here and going to find out what his thoughts are. Certainly going to be interested to find out what he thinks about 2CP and the difference that they had to fight against today, and if they felt actually under pressure in that last match especially. I mean, Lijiang was a great match as well for 2CP. Certainly gave them, you know, it's one that happens in the beginning. You tend to forget about the first couple of matches, especially when there's a Blizzard World slotted very nicely firmly in the middle there.
Days over that one. That one never happened. It was a 2-0, and this is a best of 3. Okay. So we're all
indeed.
we are waiting for Sponge to join us here, unfortunately.
Was this closer than you think? And how far away? Like, is this next time we'll see 2CP closer? Maybe 5 matches time we're gonna see it. And, like, do we see in this season ATK actually being threatened?
In the stage, definitely not. They've played the 2 strongest teams already and dominated both of them. But in this season, the potential exists. But I always worry when a team is working as hard as ATK is working. And they've got the resources that they have to work with that just isn't matched by any of the other teams. So that puts them in a position where the ebb and flow still keeps them well above the rest of the teams in the league. So it's possible, it's always possible on the day for somebody to show up and slap them around and actually manage to take a map off them. But this team is of a caliber where I haven't seen what I need to see out of the other teams just yet to actually see them dropping maps or matches anytime soon. But we do have Sponge, so we will get his thoughts.
Sponge, welcome and congratulations. A 3-0 win. You're going to be happy about that.
Oh, yeah, 100%, man. Thanks for that.
Awesome.
There we saw you guys taking on 2CP, and you guys look comfortable for a lot of the games. A little bit worried in Lijiang Tower there that you did manage to eventually get the 2-0 maps out there at the end. But Paris, a map that you guys are renowned for not enjoying, and 2CP seemed to surprise you a little bit there.
Paris, I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of players of Overwatch don't like Paris.
Yeah.
We just scrimmed it a few times to make sure we had some sort of idea as to what we're going to do when it comes to a Paris match, but that's obviously just in case a team like 2CP or even Small Axe the week before go, you know, we're going to pick Paris and see if we can surprise ATK and try and pull something. So better safe than sorry. So we have scrimmed it, and we do have some things hidden away to use like in future or whenever we need it.
Well, okay, what's it going to take for you to bring out some of your special strats?
Well, I mean, it depends on what the enemy team plays, right?
Okay.
So if they're going to play, there's the the triangle, brawl, spam, and what? It's skipping my mind.
Dive.
Brawl, spam, and dive. Wow, I'm actually not even an Overwatch player.
Dude, we're commentators. This happens to us all the time, and now it's nice to see that it's just...
Yeah, no,
we're not even a professional talker. We are, and we suck.
So yeah, it honestly depends on what the enemy team plays as to what we're going to pull out in our playbook, so to say.
Okay. So, question from my side is, I suspect I know your answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You saw the results recently that 2CP kind of put up, right? They lost to Evo in a very surprising result, but they also beat Snorlax, who went on to lose to OG or lost to OG just before that, so struggling a little bit in their own right. Did that change your expectations of how this match was going to go, or were you guys still feeling confident coming into this matchup tonight?
Obviously, we're kind of riding on this whole, you know, we've had a really good running so far in terms of Overwatch, the competitive scene. So we take a look and we hear things going around. There are rumors that they're picking up a new secondary tank and all of those kind of things. So we obviously on our toes no matter what. We always like trying to anticipate what could happen. So that's why I think it's almost becoming repetitive now with how many times we have to say, like, we treat every team the same, you know? Like, it's the best way to make sure that you constantly give it your all, no matter what.
Okay, that's what I expect you to say.
Yeah.
We treat every team the same. That was the refrain I had.
Yeah.
So.
I'm trying to figure out how not to say that.
I mean, I threw you an easy ball and you hit it
We
out the
consider them
park, so-
all valuable opponents, and there's ways that you can twist that a little bit nicely. You just talked about the fact that you guys have had such a good season so far. I mean, we were just talking about it now. 20 out of 20 out of your last 20 matches, 20 wins. That's got to feel good. And considering you have only now dropped a single map out of those last 20, you guys have obviously been training really hard for this season. You guys are showing the results of it. Going forwards, without giving away your entire game strategy, is it more of the same, polishing off those tried and true methods while working on a couple of little ones? Or are you trying to change a couple of things up and really break out of the current meta that we are seeing so far?
I'd say the most important thing we did to change how we play as a team is to just really nail the basics of Overwatch. Because you'll find a lot of even top 500 players have no idea what the actual basics are of 6v6 Overwatch. So if you can figure out a way to nail your steps and how to work together as a team, what you play in terms of meta isn't that important. Yes, certain heroes are kind of busted, like Echo can be quite broken at times, but I don't think I played Echo once, or 20 played Echo once. I don't think we saw any Echo today, actually.
No, none.
So it all depends on what your players are strongest at is a good way to start, and then building off of that. So if you've got a lot of dive players, like you got a Genji main, or you got a ball OTP like we have Bandit, you got to play to their strengths at the end of the day. So I'd say that's the best way.
I like it when you say that, because too many teams, especially teams that are training and trying to get better, are just we need to figure out the perfect strategy and we got counterpicked or anything like that. To hear you say just go back to the basics is just such a good piece of advice for any player of Overwatch, I think.
Especially in light of hero pools as well. Knowing the basics is worth much more than getting good at one comp, in my opinion. Last question from me. You've been said, 20s on your team, 20 wins, 20 matches, 20 all around. Is there any team you guys think can actually be? Who's the team you fear the most? Maybe fear is the wrong word, but who do you think is the most likely to take maps off you, to take matches off you?
I mean, I think every team in the league has the potential to do it. If you look at all the teams, right, there are some standout players on most of them, and at the same time, it's sometimes we don't have our best days, or there could be any number of things. So I'm not going to say there's a specific team that we're necessarily worried about taking a game off of us or a map off of us, because I mean, we'd like that. I don't know how to say it. It's kind of like back when unidentified was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And we used to go against Eden, and even if we lost, we were like, oh, that was the best game of Overwatch we've ever played. And that feeling just doesn't really ever go away because of how the South African scene is kind of thriving and building up. We've got so many good players. So I wouldn't say we have one team we worry about, which is, once again, why we respect every team and treat them the same.
Okay, awesome.
Well, Sponge, you're here for one particular reason. You are our player of the match, so congratulations to you. You got put on a sterling performance. But there were two things that stood out to me here tonight, and I have to ask which one was your favorite. Was it the fantastic Dragon Blade in the back line with Genji that basically won you guys that Paris point, first point? Or was it the fact that you got to play Bastion in a competitive match?
I'm going to have to go with the Genji Blade. Simply because my coach has been nailing me about being really bad at it. So I just I've got that little thing now that I can maybe say I did something with my blade for once and be happy, That's kind of what I'm going with.
We haven't us playing the game as well on stream, so that's the best part. You can just clip that part and be like, "It's this."
I will definitely clip it and ship it and see what he says.
Awesome.
Well, Sponge, do you have well, you guys have obviously been doing well. You are rated, without a doubt, the top team in South Africa. Is there any way players can follow you or fans can follow you as a player and your team?
Well, I mean, if you want to take a look for the entire team and all of ATK's orgs, you can find them on their Twitter, which is at ATK Arena. And they usually retweet things about all their teams, their racing team, Fortnite, Apex. They've really built up quite a few teams at this point. But yeah, I think you should be able to find all the players you're looking for through them.
Such a fantastic organization that's doing so much. This is obviously the ATK Elite Division here. We are doing Overwatch by ATK. So go give ATK some like, even if you just want some general action, whether it's this team or any other game, really, to be honest. Our unfortunate second place team here tonight was 2CP. You can follow them on Twitter at XvG_2CP. Just lots of letters. XvG_2CP. So, so there was a little bit of algebra and spelling homework for you if you guys want to follow that team. The fantastic Sun Phoenix is here on my left, and he does a whole bunch of stuff. So where can we find you, Sun Phoenix?
You can find me at Sun Phoenix on Twitter, SunPheonyx. I tweet about things. I tweeted about Halo the other day. And I haven't tweeted since then, even though I was on broadcast between then and now. Otherwise, it's mostly Zero Overwatch stuff. If you want to know anything about that, that's where you can find me.
I do like that you've got your name at the bottom, though, because like it was trying to spell that one, not so great. And if you guys are interested, the XvG is literally XvG2CP. It's up there in the corner so that you can go and write that down with the underscore between it. Just pointing out
this guy.
That's how you do it, bro. This production has been brought to you by the fantastic Peach. He is an amazing man in the background there. He gives us all of these fantastic instructions here in the background, straight from you guys. You suck. That's like maybe the third dab I've done in my life. And you can follow the Peach ZA on Twitter. I have been Ultraism, down there below, on all the social medias. I do a bunch of streaming and stuff like that. Sun Phoenix, last words to the fans.
I'm paid by the dab, so I can only do one dab per screen. Otherwise, ATK couldn't afford me anymore, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. So tune in next time for your next dab.
Can I pay you not to dab?
Yeah, you can. We'll put up a bidding war, dab, don't dab, and with the more money, then I will dab or not dab.
We're going to have a charity stream, guys, the Dabathon or something like that. Every hour he has to throw in a dab, and just or every time someone donates, he's going to have to dab. It's going to be great. We'll keep you posted on that. But until then,
you have to donate above a certain amount.
Yeah, obviously.
I can't just give it away,
Guys, after this, you can go watch Sun Phoenix dab. Another reason to follow him on social media, or follow all of these channels to keep up with South African Overwatch action here. We're going to see you for our next Overwatch by ATK tournament. We can't wait to see you. But until then, have a wonderful night. Goodbye.